principal, Mr. Spencer Paragoy. Spencer will take it from here. You go, Spencer.
Well, good day to you all. On behalf of St. John Lutheran School in Ellisville, we're honored to share with you some of our best practices which have been identified through the National Exemplary School process of the NLSA. We are attempting to learn and identify what 21st century education looks like. We are committed to learning about the 4 C's, which are in blue on this slide. We believe they help guide classroom instructions so that students can develop the skills to help them be successful in the future and to be lifelong learners. So we're intentional about, these best practices fitting into these categories and challenging ourselves in order to continue to learn and find out how best to reach all students in our school community. Since we have 8 practices to share, I know that's kind of unique, and a lot of these aren't set up this way, but we felt like a lot of these are important to share with schools around the country. And so we're going to begin with them kind of by running through these one at a time. They kind of start out in early childhood, and they kind of roll up through the different grade levels. I'm going to set about 5 minutes for each one of these. And at the conclusion of that, we'll have some time to answer questions at the end. The contact information for each of my staff members who have prepared their narratives are going to be included in each one of these slides. So when you go back and view this on the portal, you can contact them personally at their web address or me in order to answer any questions you might specifically have about this. So we're going to get rolling here. The first area we're going to talk about is Project Construct. And, I'll just start this out on early childhood education, saying that in our first few years of building up our preschool, we spent a lot of time communicating with people about our early childhood education, what it was not. We're not a Montessori school. We're not a school that just cranks out worksheets, and we're not a pre-kindergarten, academically focused. We're developmentally appropriate. And we look for language in order to help explain what our early childhood program really looks like. So if you have an early childhood center, and we hope that this might be some direction for you in order to help define what young children should be learning and preparing them for your primary grades. Project Construct is based on a constructivist theory of learning, which states that children actively construct their own knowledge and values, a result of interactions with the physical and social worlds that they live in. This process-oriented framework not only supports young children's ways of learning, but also provides teachers, family, and administrators with the information they need to make appropriate decisions regarding the education of young children. This framework is closely linked to state and national standards and provides a means for early childhood educators to meet learning objectives and translate their knowledge and observations to young children with appropriate teaching practices. Now, we began to introduce this about 4 years ago in an attempt to empower children to be more engaged in the classroom. All of our St. John staff are equipped with Project Construct training modules. They've been encouraged to take into account and support varying abilities of individual children, use developmentally appropriate practices, and child-initiated experiences. The overall result is a supportive, collaborative, child-centered environment in which children really flourish. Now, it's got definitely advantages for us, and the challenge of this is there is no curriculum like a state standards to teach math or science or social studies. So teachers have to be in tune with this philosophy because they have to create a lot of their lessons and teach to a lot of those standards based on what the students' interests are. So it's a lifelong journey that we all go through in learning. And as parents and families, you're not just important companions, but we're necessary partners. Eleanor Duckworth said, learning in school need not and should not be different from children's natural form of learning throughout the world. We need to broaden and deepen their scope of learning by opening up parts of the world that they may not on their own have thought of thinking about. So we believe that this philosophy and this understanding of early childhood development has allowed our school, really, especially on our early childhood portion, to reach full capacity classrooms in our 2s, 3s, and 4s. And we're very thankful that we kind of are a model school in our St. Louis community of not just accredited, but also a positive environment where children learn and grow. Our next best practice that we feel is kind of unique to us is called the Daily 5. And this was something that was brought to my attention by one of our early, primary grade teachers who's done a little research on this through her graduate work and felt that this is something we want to incorporate at our kindergarten, first, and second grade levels where it really does flourish and is really modeled very well in our school community. The Daily 5 is a framework for teaching reading behaviors in 5 areas. Reading to self, reading to a partner, listening to reading, working with words, and writing. This way of organizing allows teachers to work with small groups and individuals while teachers complete reading tasks in the 5 areas independently. So students, this is really a student-focused, centered approach with language arts. Now what the Daily 5 is not, it isn't a curriculum. It's not meant to replace your reading program. It's a way to organize and incorporate 5 centers that students can do independently on a daily basis. So what are the students doing? They are reading to themselves, reading to partners, listening to reading, working with words, and writing. And that happens, again, as they get guided practice through these different center type activities to become more independent learners. Now, during the Daily 5, teachers are working with small groups of students on skills that they need. They're assessing students in reading, spelling, and writing or phonics so that the assessment can help drive instruction. Now, do you stop using your literacy curriculum? No, you use it to teach mini lessons on reading skills, writing skills, phonics, or spelling. You use your curriculum to instruct small groups of students who may need more practice or may need to be challenged or enriched. You get to use your curriculum as a tool to meet the needs of all your students. So the benefits. We started doing the Daily 5 as a way to incorporate more intentional reading behaviors and develop independence during literacy time. The teachers wanted to have more time instructing in small groups. Now in the past we had many centers which were becoming unmanageable because of the teacher's effort to redirect students to the proper behavior or task. One of our teachers suggested this because it talked about how to match students with books. After reading the book, we realized there was so much more to the framework. It streamlined the center materials and encouraged students to practice reading instead of being drawn to the centers that had more interesting material. The Daily 5 made the books the most engaging material in the room. It also helped the students develop stamina to read and work for longer periods of time independently. This freed the teachers to be working with small groups or individuals to give them the attention that they needed to grow as leaders. Now, you can learn more about the Daily Five by Gail Bushy and Joan Moser, who have written a book. They've got a website. In fact, we joined the Daily Cafe, which is the two sisters. They have videos that can show you how to do these kinds of things. I mean, we just borrowed this best practice from other people in order to make learning more engaging by our students. And as I said, you saw Erin's information at the very beginning. I encourage you to get in touch with her because she has become the guru of the Daily Five in our school. And as I said, we use this in kindergarten, first grade, and in second grade to guide literacy centers and development with our kids. We're going to talk a little bit about class meetings because we have found this to be a very valuable, we would say, intervention strategy in developing a culture inside our classrooms, as well as addressing issues as they come up with individuals and at different grade levels. So Jennifer Calvin is a school counselor here at St. John's, and she has put together this information about class meetings. It's simply a time to set aside each week to address any problems that's come up in the classroom. Anything that's causing a problem for the class, such as misbehavior or conflict between students, they can be addressed during this class meeting time. And during this time, we have intentional, maybe curriculum or directives that we want to intentionally address with our kids and help them learn how to solve problems and take responsibility for their own actions. Our administrative team talked about the role this plays in our school and in our child development philosophy. We like the flexible structure of this class meeting time. We wanted teachers to have a time set aside to address all the dynamic issues that come up in the classroom, in the cafeteria, on the playground, in the hallways. We also wanted to have a venue that allowed important values and life lessons to be taught through activities and group discussions. So we were asked to fit a 30-minute class meeting in each week right after our chapel service. And inspired by our school mascot, we call this class meeting time Cougar Pride. And pride is when cougars get together, so that's kind of our name for this intervention. While class meetings can be loosely structured, we decided to provide the teachers with a curriculum that they could use on weeks with little conflict to address. We use value-based videos to start the discussions. All students watched the same video together at the conclusion of chapel, and then went back to their classrooms to answer each appropriate discussion questions about the videos. They were challenged to think about the value on a personal level, a classroom level, and sometimes a school or a global level. Teachers asked their classes to be honest on how well they practice the value, and then challenge them on how they're going to improve in that area. Now, this structured format worked well for lower grades, mainly kindergarten through fourth grade, but it seemed to provide too much structure for the upper grades in 5 through 8. So this year we made some changes. While the lower grades continue to meet with their homerooms for Cougar Pride, once a week, the upper grades now meet in house groups. Each house group consists of about 15 students, a male leader and a female leader, usually from our staff. And these house groups are made up of male and female students with equal numbers of 5 through 8th graders. Now, building a sense of community is a primary goal for this house group. In order to have the students take ownership of the groups, we decided to enlist the 8th graders to actually lead them. They meet weekly with the lead teacher in 8th grade, and they're informed about the upcoming week's agenda. They lead their group members in team building activities and discussions, modeling respect, social skills, and care for each other. At the end of the day, it probably is a real positive way to help guide that leadership principle of our school into our 8th graders. And we have really seen them step up this year as they take ownership and responsibility for their groups. One of the other goals for this house group is to provide accountability. Students can earn positive or negative points for their house during the week by making good choices or poor choices. Each point is earned or taken away as discussed in the house group. Members can praise each other for points earned and challenge each other to make good choices as well. At the end of the year, rewards will be given to the groups who earned enough points. The accountability system provides a way to address student problems during this house group time. So far, students participating in the house groups have shown a sense of pride in our school, responsibility for actions, a sense of belonging, and respect towards one another. Now, it's not that we have problems in all these areas, but we felt like it could be better. And if we could have some type of a program in which the kids take ownership and develop more leadership skills, we thought that would be a win-win situation. So as you can see, we've evolved this. It seems like every year as we go through this process, we say, this has worked pretty well. This is something that doesn't seem to be working for us. So how are we going to tweak it to make it a better program and fit where we are today? We're going to learn a little bit about differentiated spelling. And Sherry DeBerkey has been a key driver of this in we started out as a 2nd grade program, which now exists in grades 1 through 8, is how we use spelling in our school. And I remember the days when, we counted on Hoot and Mifflin to tell us what we need to teach kids in spelling. And we'd get those 20 words each week, and the kids would do the crossword puzzles and fill in the blank. And then they take the tests, and they all get good grades on those spelling tests, and yet in their daily writing and in our standardized tests, spelling always seems to be the weakest point. So we've made a different approach to how we teach spelling now in our school. Our differentiated spelling program came about as a need to meet the needs of all students in our classrooms, both those of high ability and low. We found our gifted students were not being challenged beyond the spelling curriculum, and students were not held accountable to learn their misspelled words on tests and in their daily work. So after pre-testing our students, we use our spelling curriculum words, and when we went through those words, we were surprised to find out that most of our students, both high and low, already knew how to spell those words. So we kind of talked to a couple teachers who went through some workshops on our program and collaborated with our team of 2nd grade teachers and came up with a process that seemed to work for us. Students are taught spelling and phonetic rules. Students are then pre-tested over the curriculum spelling words on Mondays. Now, the words the student missed become part of their new spelling list. Now, where do we get the rest of their words? Because that student could maybe out of the 10 or 15 words on Monday, depending on their grade level, even 20, get them all right. So what do they do for the rest of the week? Well, they have a spelling journal where they collect words throughout the week. When students are writing, they use their spelling journals where they try to spell words before asking the teacher. Where students miss go on to their new spelling list. Teachers also keep sticky note lists of words students miss in their daily work. They retrieve their sticky notes from the teacher and place them in their spelling journals. Now, what happens if students don't have enough missed words and words in their spelling journals to complete their spelling lists? Well, lists of level words are created based on the phonetic rules for the weeks, and they are guided by their teacher to the level words that are appropriate for them. So in one grade, they may be looking at prefixes or suffix type endings in words and linking them together. In our upper grades, they may be high-level vocabulary words or words that they're reading in literature or pulling from different subject areas. Oh, I'm going to stay right there, I guess. So there's a lot of accountability in this. Students actually spend a lot of time testing each other. Students with like abilities are paired up and test each other after modeling from the teacher. It's amazing to watch the responsibility and cooperation that happens in the classroom between the students. Words the students miss are placed back in their spelling books to be tested again. So you don't move on from these words until they've mastered those words that they should be responsible for knowing. So they're always working towards retention and application. Understand the phonetic rules, not just the memorization to get done with the test. So they've created a lot of spelling homework that can be used for all students, and with a variety of activities. So if you have questions about this and how this is used throughout our school, I'm going to encourage you to get back in touch with Sherry. And I know that she would be happy to share this intervention strategy that we feel has been very successful in our school to help struggling spellers as well as advanced spellers.
Hi, this is Rob Jackley. Spencer wanted me to talk a little bit about some of our technology integration strategies as we pull them through here. I've come to St. John this is my 5th year as an instructional technology coordinator, so for us it's kind of been a process of coming through and helping teachers to recognize that when we look at technology for us is not a class, that we've really taken a pretty significant step towards full integration of the ISTE National Educational Technology Standards as our way of addressing technology needs for all of our students. So just real quick, I want to take a look at 4 areas for us. First is kind of our philosophy of technology integration, the importance of professional development, kind of our views on where we're going in the direction of access, and then kind of finishing up with talking about the way that we've used interactive whiteboards for us as a school. So for us, this diagram, some of you may recognize, it's actually called TPAC. TPAC stands for Technological Pedagogical Content Knowledge. And as you scroll through and you take a look at something like this, we want to make sure that we recognize that teachers are experts in understanding pedagogy, which is the how of teaching, and content, which is in the what am I teaching. We need to recognize that our 21st century has given us a context where technology really enables them to make a significant impact on both pedagogy and content. So we want teachers to have a good blend of all 3 of those as we're teaching. And this is going to be our model as we push forward, helping teachers understand that it's an integration piece, not an either or a separate piece for us. That's really kind of been a piece for us. I love this quote from Chris Lehman from Science Leadership Academy. It says, "Technology should be like oxygen, ubiquitous, necessary, and invisible." For us at St. John, as part of our philosophy, we recognize that we eventually want a device, whatever that device is, to be just like a pencil, to be just like paper, that it's part of the student's learning process and that it's not a separate piece for us. To be able to have this type of philosophy, it's important that we as a school have adopted consistent and ongoing professional development. For us, most of that happens during our monthly faculty meetings, and that's kind of what those are all about. During those meetings, we talk about the how of teaching, so differentiated instruction or other best practices or good pedagogy. We also talk about the what of teaching, like what are we supposed to be working on in those different ways, like our curriculum apps and working with technology standards. Or we look at other student learning components like assessment, student, family, spiritual development, etc. And each of these can and does involve a technology component. We've also adopted, in relationship to our ongoing professional development, a learn, do, and share model. So for example, in September, as a staff, we walked through the importance of using technology tools to address issues of research and information fluency. So during that month of September, each teacher had to schedule a time for Spencer to come in and view a lesson where they were intentionally including research and information fluency strategies, which is actually a standard number 3 in the ISTE National Educational Technology Standards. And then during our October faculty meeting, we shared what our student learning activities are with the larger group and had an opportunity to receive feedback on those. So on professional development days with our staff, they're conscious to not separate the digital tool from our curriculum maps or from discussions of best practices with regards to pedagogy. We want teachers' paradigms to shift and for them to start viewing technology in light of our philosophy. To do that, to have a philosophy like our technology integration philosophy, and for us to have the ongoing professional development in that way, we want to make sure that everyone has access to those technology tools. We currently have 2 dedicated computer labs. Our desktop lab, which has 25 desktop computers. Our K-4 classes utilize this lab most during the week. A laptop computer lab, which is in the 2nd floor of our middle school, designed for 5th through 8th grade, has 25 laptops, so some of which can be checked out during the school day for student work during seminar or study hall times. This year, we've also intentionally added 10 laptops each to our 7th and 8th grade social studies and language arts rooms for student use. We also have taken 6 netbooks, which we were demoing for a potential one-to-one device that we're moving away from. So we decided to take those devices, move them into our science lab for use with some science probes that we had purchased through some title money this past school year. And currently, with regards to access, we're working through a migration of taking all of our productivity applications like Microsoft Office for students, Inspiration, Kidspiration, and we're currently working to move those to an off-site cloud solution. So that our goal is that by providing 24/7 application access to students, that starting in the 2012 school year, students in 7th to 8th grade will be able to bring their own laptop or be able to bring their own device to school to use. That way, as a school, we can get out of the hardware business and trying to make those decisions on how are we going to fund those pieces. So for us, our goal is to fund the applications and to fund the process and the need of how we can help students be learners and be productive and not try to worry about hardware. So for us, that's a piece. Having access to these digital tools is an important component for us to successfully integrate technology with our teachers and students. Our last piece is, that we've recognized has been a best practice for us has been the inclusion of interactive whiteboards. This is our 2nd full year of having an interactive whiteboard in all of our K through 8 classrooms. For us, the key to effectively using a whiteboard and increasing student achievement is the interactive part of that board. For example, K through 1 are using interactive whiteboard routinely with their daily 5 activities, which, as we talked about earlier, are center-based. Teachers are using boards to effectively model appropriate technology behaviors. They're creating engaging activities for whole group presentation, as well as using it with individuals or small groups of students as learning centers. So trying to create the maximum connection point for student use. So that's us. These are our 4 components, which for us have been our best practice move forward when we take a look at where technology is going, and that will continue to be our guide. And if you have any questions, my contact information is back on the first slide. So I encourage you to get in contact with us.
Bob has been a great resource in helping us focus our efforts on how we best incorporate technology, not necessarily as a place or as a thing, but as far as our daily classroom instruction. We're going to talk a little bit about our middle school block schedule. And I just might say at the beginning of this that we started this with a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade teacher in trying to figure out how best to take more time in our daily schedule to get more work done in the classroom, because we felt so rushed in every single departmentalized subject that we were teaching. Teachers were just rushing through their lessons, and they felt like there wasn't a lot of time for guided and independent practice on a lot of the new concepts they were teaching. So with that kind of frustration, we kind of felt like, well, okay, so where can we look to give us more time? And we've kind of moved into this philosophy of a block schedule. A lot of high schools and middle schools employ this type of scheduling, and we felt like it fit us really well. So I'm just going to briefly tell you a little bit about this and how we do this. We call a modified block because we have A day and B days. And some schools just every other day is an A day and B day. And so on one day you might have 3 A's and 2 B's. The next week you might have 2 A's and 3 B's. But we have a specific A day and a specific B day, as you can see from the schedule. And on Wednesdays, we actually cover all our classes on a traditional day. Our block classes are 84 minutes in length. And on an A day, a class might have language arts and history. And on a B day, they would have their math and science classes. So we do ability track in math for our upper grades. So that does allow us in that math day to have sections of an advanced math and a standard math to take place. On the non-block classes during that day, you say, well, what do you do in between? I mean, what happens between that besides the math and science and language arts and social studies or history? We have electives as part of that schedule, and we do have an A day and B day elective track. There's also PE certain days of the week. We have a technology class where kids go in and work on their projects. Art is still part of the weekly activity, the religion or Christian learning class, and we have this class meeting time that you learned about in the previous slide. Here's a slide of a typical schedule. And you can see in our 8th grade, they have a Monday and Thursday A-day schedule and a Tuesday and Thursday B-day schedule and a Wednesday full contact day, we call it, schedule. Now, we saw some real advantages to this. There's more time for science labs and experiments. And that means that, the transition times are allowing for less setup and cleanup, as well as always a big challenge in there. It gives us longer time for project-based learning and to use technology in both history and language arts. So we're able to be more engaged as students in more project-based type of activities rather than, the book is the only thing you're working on during that time frame. And, there's just less travel time with the block schedule. When we first introduced this, we were actually in another building on our campus and moving between floors and around the hall and down, this hallway, and we were always struggling with getting kids where they needed to be. And really now there's a lot less travel between classrooms and between subject areas. So, if you have questions on that, I'm just going to say we started doing research a year in advance of making this change, and we actually had some folks come in from our neighborhood public schools who were incorporating in a high school setting or perhaps even in a middle school setting the pros and the cons of it. I think to say right now pretty safely is No, those 4 main subject area teachers, they would not go back to, I don't know what they do. I'd have anarchy. If we said, you know what, let's just go back to a normal standard, 40, 45-minute class schedule and keep these kids moving up and about all the time. We feel it's worked really well for us. One of the popular things we find in our total program, and we incorporate this now, literature circles in grades 5 through 8, is getting middle school kids excited about reading and capturing, they have so many different things going on that, reading sometimes takes a backseat to other content areas or their sports and out-of-school club activities, those type things. And so we try and do whatever we can to motivate and keep those kids reading alive and at a high level of interest. So we're going to learn a little bit about literature circles, and Liz has been an important driver for that in our school program. And this is a little bit about how it all works. Liz has used these now for 9 years in her classroom. And although she is a 7th and 8th grade language arts teacher, our 5th and 6th grade language arts teacher also incorporates with her students there. She's found that these literature circles encourage students to read a little more carefully, and groups have increased engagement time with the text. Literature circle discussions when led by students have many benefits and supporters. The types of discussions help deepen the comprehension process, and their insights and questions drive the discussion, not the teacher's questions. In addition, she's found that the literature circles increase the level of independence the students must use to determine how much they will read each week, what roles they have, what they'll discuss, and often what books that they'll read. Literature circles are small temporary groups in which students have a choice in their reading material, and different groups read different books. Each group meets on a regular schedule and use that time to write or draw notes to discuss topics that they choose from the book. The meetings are open and natural conversations should be playful and fun for students. At the beginning of a new book or other reading material, they assign and rotate roles. Teachers can conduct literature circles differently, but they essentially follow the same form. They prepare for literature circle discussions by reading the assigned text and completing a specific role or response. They move students beyond normal classroom discussion where they only respond to teacher questions. Instead, the control shifts to the students, allowing them to take responsibility for the discussion. Now, there are specific jobs that the kids have in these circles. Now, they take place every Wednesday in Liz's class. They come prepared to discuss a novel. She has them use role sheets for the different roles of discussion director, who asks questions of the text, a literary luminary, who shares passages that they felt were important, a vocabulary enricher, who shares words that were particularly difficult or important to the text, an artistic adventurer who artistically can represent the text in some way. And there are other roles that take place. Now, during the discussion, the teacher is a facilitator and not part of the group. Instead, I'm listening and evaluating. Evaluation also comes through student self-reflection. And when the readings are finished, each group shares their books with the classes, and then new groups form. So often the teacher assigns a choice on final projects that the kids can choose from. Occasionally it's a paper, but usually it's a technology driven project that the kids then make presentations as a group to the rest of the class. So literature circles can be used in a variety of ways with a variety of students. And it should be just one of many ways to reach students. They help differentiate instruction so that each student gets what or she needs from a book and discussion. So they should be using best practices in education, and we feel that literature circles are part of those best practices. And I'm going to really encourage you, if you have a middle school or upper school language arts teacher, that you get them in touch with Liz or do some research on what literature circles are all about and how they can really help get your kids fired up about reading. I'm going to finish up with one more section. I know I've got to take a breath here. And that is school surveys. And, it's always a challenge to get people to tell you what they really mean about things. You hear the chronic complainer, or the squeaky wheel parent who always has a agenda on what they want to have done or accomplished or get done. And that usually is hopefully where you are a small minority of people that you listen to. And we've usually found that by going through this survey process that we do on an annual basis, we gather lots of information from our parents that give us a real strategic direction, and I believe it helps retain students and empowers your stakeholders to feel like they have a say in where the school's headed. The purpose is really we want to find out what people really think, and it can be enlightening and challenging. Being intentional in gathering information from your stakeholders values their opinion and allows you to communicate your key message points to help educate your community on your own values. Each April and May timeframe, we email out an annual parent survey that is done online to all families in our school. We actually send out two different. We have a preschool directed survey and a K through 8 directed survey. We use a constant contact format. Now, you may have seen this advertised. I think I've actually seen it on television from time to time now. But we use this as an email newsletter that's sent out monthly for strategic communication from me directly to our families. Well, they also have a survey portion of this. They have a component. It is a fee-based component, I believe, based on how many people are in your database. But it is user-friendly, and it captures statistical and narrative information so you can easily use this. So we even put things on a scoring scale that we usually ask our parents, what grade would you give us on a scale of 1, meaning extremely poor, to 10, outstanding, on these different questions in our survey. And then we ask them, why did you answer or give us that level of response? And that's when you get the very interesting comments. And we feel that those are extremely helpful for us. Sometimes those questions are designed based on last year's comments. So if we have a lot of comments that may be based on a topic of discipline, like people thought that discipline needed to be improved upon, we may go back and add that to this next year's survey to find out what people are thinking now. Did our interventions or did the things that we did to address that really make a difference? Now, we usually share this information each fall at our State of the School address with our student student and parents at an open house and find out is a good way, again, to let people know what they think really makes a difference in where we're headed. We've taken a lot of those comments and a lot of those responses and helped them fill into a strategic plan that continues to drive our future and our direction. Now, I've got a couple questions here. One is over our Daily 5 presentation here, and someone asks about teacher collaboration in the Daily 5. We intentionally set time each week where our teachers meet to collaborate on their lesson planning and sharing information. We do this actually before school or right after school. And, you know, even though we may have 2 teachers in every grade level, we feel that it is very important for those teachers to sit and plan and decide how best to use these 21st century skills to impact students, their instruction with kids. So they collaborate, they plan their centers together, they are given time, especially in the morning. We've had to give up some things like the sacred institution of staff devotions, in which we meet a half hour before school in order to accomplish some of those things. I don't think these issues, excuse me, are a large versus a small school in implementing a lot of these strategies. In fact, I'm guessing that some of these instructional thoughts are differentiators between our school and what's going on in the school down the street. Our kids are excited about learning with some of these strategies. And they come home and tell their parents. Or they'll show their parents the presentation they're putting together for their literature circle. And it does wonders to get parents on board and excited about what happens here. I think that's part of the things that we do well in Lutheran schools is empower stakeholders to tell our story. We just need to give them good stories to tell, whether we're a school of 100 or 50 or 550. And it comes out of what happens in the classroom. We had a question about implementing Cougar Pride Time in a small school. Excuse me. See, I talk too much. I think it's setting aside intentional time to discuss issues that come up in every single classroom. And we just identified the time right after chapel because we have all those kids sitting in that sanctuary, all being able to view the same information or hear the same spiel, and then walk back to their classrooms and then discuss it in an age-appropriate way with issues that are happening in their class or at their grade level. It doesn't mean that you're always mining for issues, but we all realize that, you know, we have issues such as bullying or, you know, not accepting differences in other kids or not following the rules of games on the playground. So I know that you probably don't have those issues in your school, but we have those issues at St. John. And yes, I'm saying that facetiously. But whatever you can do to give your teachers an intentional, we're going to address them because it's just not okay. These things just don't suddenly creep away or go away. It also helps your students get empowered to speak about these things and talk about things that really bother them. I don't think it's, you know, necessarily, again, something that you have to make happen on a regular basis, but we feel like it works well in our format to set that time aside and really intentionally address that during those times.
Those are all the questions.
Okay, so I'm looking for other questions if anybody has some of those kinds of things. You can just pop it up on the chat. It's nice to see some familiar names out there. I pray you all are doing well. The video source. Oh, goodness. You know, you've probably seen the Liberty commercials. Liberty Mutual Insurance commercials that
Character counts.
we use actually some of those because they have a wide variety besides the ones that you see on TV. Also, character counts,
That's like the billboards.
I believe, is another source.
Here, I'll put some in.
Rob's going to maybe answer that question for you
I'll put an example.
as an example.
I'll put an example in.
You know, we did, you're probably familiar with the book, How Full is Your Bucket? And we actually used that last year for about a semester. It had a lot of good questions and discussion points to encouraging people on what does it mean when you come in and, you know, empty somebody else's bucket.
You said the teachers.
Yes, when you said that the teacher used specific curriculum, are you suggesting some type of values education curriculum? I would say yes. The thing is being intentional in mining for the conflict. And we usually find that our kids, once they get trained to have conversations, or they write things down on an index card and they turn it into a bucket or a certain place that they want those topics brought out, they may not want to talk about them out loud or be identified. I've often thought it would be interesting if you ever decided to get all your kids together and say, okay, now, who in this class can we vote off the island and why? Now, in a Christian community, that would be something that would be repulsive and never do, but sometimes it's good to mind to say, you know, what issues are we dealing in this classroom that we wish we could fix and get better at? And we'll put a slide in the presentation with some of those resources. I'll get that information from Jennifer. They've usually been short and to the point and been very helpful, at least to start the discussion going, even with our older kids. Again, if you have specific questions on what we covered, be happy to go ahead and type those in, and we can respond to those. Go ahead.
Small schools.
Rob wants to speak a little bit to the point about technology in smaller schools.
At St. John, we're, I would say, especially blessed with the community that we're in that values technology. I had come from a smaller school in west of St. Louis, Emmanuel in Wentzville, and that was a much smaller school, did not have nearly the resources. But for us, I think that the key is, and this is something even small schools can do, is it's not a matter specifically about the actual individual technology components. One of the things, if you have the opportunity, well then I'll add this to that link, is focusing on the technology standards. If you're not familiar with the International Society of Technology and Education organization, it's a professional organization for technology and education. They have come out with technology standards for students, and the awesome thing about that is that if you look at the 6 standards that are there, only one of them has to do with specific tools. So you could literally have no technology in your school to talk about things like communication and collaboration. When we come to talking about social media, there are activities that you could do, like for example, have your own Twitter wall in your classroom. So where students can write and post up on a bulletin board. You can still have conversations about appropriate posting, even if you don't have access to those different pieces. So a lot of these conversations that students are engaging in and learning about how do I handle social media, some stuff that they're doing at home, even if you don't have those at school, or have those tools available to you at school, a lot of those conversations can still be had. So I'd encourage you as much as possible to look toward those standards as much as possible. So.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is interrupt, but I want to kind of draw a close to a great session with the folks from St. John. And what I would encourage you to do is if you have quick questions, in addition to what's already been asked, hang on, put your questions. We're going to close the recorded section of our video right now. And I'm sure that Rob and Spencer will be happy to stay on and answer any specific questions you might have. Otherwise, join us next week when we celebrate the best practices at Trinity in the community.
Terry, we still on?
Hi.